So the illusion I decided to talk about is the Tower of Babel, which was a biblical event that took place in the book of Genesis, chapter 11, verses 1 through 9. The story in and of itself is very, very short. It's only 9 verses, but it holds a lot of significance and is often used very subtly and alluded to very subtly by many authors and film creators and in general just in a lot of literature. In the story, the descendants of Noah, they come to the land called Shinar and they settle here. They are a very, very large population and they all speak the same language. And so they are very successful and they're able to communicate very well with one another and get lots done. Because of this, they become very wealthy and powerful, and to show this off to the rest of the nations around them, they decide to make a name for themselves and build a tower that will reach the heavens. Another reason they decide to build this tower is so that they can reach the heavens for themselves, and therefore they will not need God in their lives to help them reach the heavens, and they can kind of be their own God. God, seeing all the arrogance of the people of Babel, he decides to come down and he scrambles the language of all the descendants of Noah so that they can no longer communicate with one another. And since they cannot communicate with one another, they aren't able to finish the tower and they aren't able to reach the heavens. After he scrambles the language, God scatters the population across the face of the earth, and this is a possible explanation for today's diversity. The word Babel is Hebrew for noisy confusion, which is very interesting because basically that's the entire story, noisy confusion. The word Babel is very often used in literature to describe situations that are, again, noisy, confused. There's lots going on, a lack of communication. So when you see the word Babel, you can know that the author is alluding to this story and basically saying the situation is very, very chaotic. Some common images or ideas to look for when you're trying to find an allusion to the Tower of Babel is a tower, obviously, or a very tall building like a skyscraper is often used. Confusion, different languages, a lack of communication, again, all part of the Babel story. An important one is mortals playing God because this is often seen with scientists or people in power thinking they have too much power and things go wrong usually for them. But mortals playing God, an ego or power check, often as a result of trying to play God. There's also often a desire to be powerful or well known, just like the people of Babel wanted to build a tower to show off their success to the other nations, a scattering or separation, and then a relationship between man and God, more specifically, that God should be reverenced by man and that men should be in subordination to God. Some themes or lessons that we learn from the Tower of Babel story is how it is important to remain faithful and reliant on God. So in the story, when the people decide that they can be their own God, they no longer need God in their lives and that they can reach heaven for themselves, they are punished and unable to succeed. Another one is how too much pride and a desire to be envied will lead to a downfall. So because the people in the Tower of Babel wanted to show off their success and wealth and power to the rest of the world, they decide to build this tower, and this tower ultimately leads to their failure as a population. Another one is how one can't succeed without communication. This one is really important because had the people been able to communicate, they could have reached the heavens and they could have finished their tower, but because they couldn't communicate with one another, they failed and they weren't able to do anything they had hoped to do. Playing God will lead to consequences. So again, a mortal having too much power or participating in actions that were unnatural or more godly will lead to consequences as seen in the story. And finally, be humble in no one's place. So when the people in the story, they had too much arrogance and too much pride and really an abundance of hubris, and so they decide to build this tower, and ultimately their power and ego are checked and they are put in place and disciplined by God, leading to their downfall. The allusion I'm going to talk about to the Tower of Babel in the Bible is in the movie Metropolis, which is a silent German film from the 1930s. And in this movie, there is a post-apocalyptic utopia, and this utopia is a two-leveled city. And in the upper level, which is above ground, lives the upper class, and they are knowledgeable, and they are wealthy, and they are very powerful. And then in the lower level of the city, which is literally underground, so underneath the upper level, is the lower class. And these people are not as smart, they have no power, no money, they're dirty, and they are worked to the bone. They are slaves to the upper city because it is their job to keep the machines running that run the upper city. So while the lower class is running these machines all day, the upper class is just kind of living their lives and living very spoiled lives because of the lower class. The main building in the upper level city is called the New Tower of Babel, which is obviously a direct allusion to the Tower of Babel from the Bible. And this tower in the upper level city shows the arrogance of the upper class, just as the Tower of Babel in the Bible showed the arrogance of the people. The upper class in this movie, they just think they are so much better than the lower class, and they are just really full of themselves. They have a lot of arrogance, a lot of ego, and this is shown with the Tower of Babel illusion. The Tower of Babel illusion is further used in this movie to show the disconnect between the levels. So, since the groups are literally on two different levels of the city, one above ground, one below ground, there is a complete lack of communication. They don't talk to one another, they don't work together, and because of this, their city starts to fail. And this is similar to how in the Tower of Babel in the Bible, without the communication, the people were unable to finish their tower and they were unable to succeed. And again, in this movie, the people are unable to succeed and their city starts to fail until they're able to communicate with one another and they are able to fix their problems in their city and they are able to succeed because of this communication. And this is an allusion to the Tower of Babel because without the communication, they were failing. With the communication, they were succeeding. So that is the movie Metropolis. Here are my sources, and thank you guys all for watching.